video, I'm going to explain to you why the greenhouse effect is an untruth. Greenhouse effect is based on a theory that the sunlight coming from the surface of the sun enters our Earth's atmosphere, and that the molecular structure of CO2 from our car exhaust, carbon, oxygen molecules, take in photon energy and then re-emit photon emissions. How they say this happens is what they call a collisional energy transfer. And what they say here is that the molecules become excited, like radioactive is another word to use, but I can't use that word because that only applies for CO2-14, a naturally occurring carbon dioxide molecule. They imply that the excited molecular movement creates heat in the air between the molecules. This is a atomic electron phenomenon of atomic orbits looking for somewhere to displace their negative and positive electron poles. The implication they make is that with all the extra car exhaust, CO2, carbon emissions, and gases, lightweight gases that are going up into the atmosphere, this is creating a phenomenon called the greenhouse effect, and that all these extra carbons in the air, hydrocarbons in the air, I'm going to call them hydrocarbons, they create a situation of warming. What they're saying is that while the sunlight, the radioactive sunlight, infrared sunlight passes through the atmosphere, all these greenhouse gases absorb these photons, electrons, from the radioactive side of the ultraviolet and infrared molecular atomic structure of the heat or the sunlight, the combination of it all actually. That this extra carbon, hydrocarbon, is stimulating, there's so much of it that it's directing through its absorption and excitement, or let's say radioactivity. It's mild I call it radioactivity, but you can't, right? Technically you can't. So they're saying that all this movement, molecular movement, creates heat in these gases, which is now pushing down on the Earth, because apparently it sends it out in fractures and sends it back towards the surface of the Earth from where all this is happening. Only problem is, with this theory, that when you go 12 kilometers, 10 to 12 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, you start to get freezing, ice-cold temperatures, and if you go a little bit further to about the 12-kilometer mark, it goes to around 58 degrees below zero. So what I'm going to imply here, which is accurate, is that all this so-called heat that's being generated from the photons, electrons, photons from the sunlight, the ultraviolet, the infrared part of the sunlight from the sun, all this is being dealt with and controlled by our atmosphere that is still icy cold, freezing, in fact. And then when the sunlight that isn't hitting the surface of the Earth, all this hot, active greenhouse gases cools down, and that their excited activity of, I'm going to have to call it mild radiation, right? Because that's what I perceive it as. That is being minimalized and depleted from any form of radioactivity that could be said to be occurring in these greenhouse gases. Labeling all this as is a carbon dioxide and a methane, a CH4, and a nitrous oxide as being the main contributors to this big trapping of heat on the surface and around the surface of the planet. And they're even making an assertion that these greenhouse gases are absorbing this radiation and preventing it from escaping into space. That's how warped their theory is on all this. And all this is occurring, right, up in icy cold, like really, really below zero temperatures, and yet and they're asserting that it's redirecting the heat back towards the Earth. This is preposterous. This is an absolute debunk on their theory. Now, I got rid of my other videos because there was a little mistake that I'd made in there. When I do this, and the way I'm doing this is I want it done thoroughly, that no scientist can argue against the theory and the truth that I'm putting forward here. That's why those other videos, although they were 99.9% accurate that I'd put in there, I wasn't taking into consideration carbon-14, CO2-14, the naturally occurring radioactive gases. And if you go deeper into the hydrocarbons, the pollutants, the sulfurs in coal seams and all the rest of it that goes up, that all combines, makes covalent bonding with water molecules and comes back down to Earth. And that's a fact. You can research that. You can look up the PFCs, the FF6s, the HFCs, the N2Os, the CH4s, and the CO2s. And you'll find that everything makes covalent bonding with water molecules. Everything that goes up there in our stratosphere, in the hemisphere, comes back down. That's a fact. And when they talk about heat and the displacement of heat and the redistribution of heat, they're absolutely wrong. It is 0 fucking degrees. It is minus fucking 0. Up to 58 below zero up there. And that's where all this heat is supposed to be redirected from that cold place. Not Curie temperature eliminated, but redirected into the fucking planet. Absolutely crazy, absurd, and unrealistic, not even scientifically partly correct in their theory. When you hear them talk about glass walls of the greenhouse gases, just know that those glass walls that they talk about that are supposedly trapping all this hot gas in there are frozen and not hot and can't even be, let's say, excited or stimulated into a molecular position or a molecular state that they could create heat. Their movement is a 0, as in ice, as in so fucking cold that there is no radioactive re-emissions. There is nothing going on up there that is affecting the temperature of this planet by exhaust pipes on vehicles. The one thing that is affecting this surface temperature of the planet is the fact that we've destroyed around half of all the trees, and we've replaced that with cities and roads. That's the reality of how the temperature has risen a couple of degrees since modern technology, since the invention of bulldozers. That's the reality. Talk about key factors, that CO2 molecules asymmetrically stretch when they are being exposed to infrared activity. They're now saying that it damages their molecular structure and allows absorption of infrared radiation. Everything is subject to infrared and ultraviolet. Everything. So when they talk about these gases that are being frozen up in the atmosphere, and that it is damaging their molecular structure, allowing this to happen, that is the sun, man. That's everything on the planet becomes subject to the powers of infrared and ultraviolet. So what they're doing is they're demonizing it so much that they're saying that this is all an unnatural thing and that the sun is an unnatural entity in science. It's a fucking joke. On their big theory that the infrared energy that would otherwise escape into space is going to stay in our air molecules and move faster, thus increasing the atmospheric heat. One thing they forgot is frozen man. Up there's the temperatures are so cold, like you can't live, really, 58 degrees below zero, below ice, melting ice. Their theory is absolutely being debunked. It's madness. This climate globalist, climate activists haven't got the science on their side. One of the other things they go against the laws of science is that they say that the CO2 molecule can release and release a new energy, an energy of emitting a new infrared photon. Do you know how fucking ridiculous that is? Like, honestly, like, in all honesty, so that's like saying, oh, I just used all the electricity in my battery, oh, but somehow mysteriously the molecular structure in my fucking battery created more energy for no reason, really. You get that part of science that they just, it's fake, it's false. Like shining a torch through a window and there's a few reflections, like it sort of refracts out into the thing, and saying, wow, look at that. I've just created brand new energy source. They're flawed, man. The globalists are flawed. Their scientists and their theories are absolutely flawed by science itself. They'll use big words like vibrational modes and bending of asymmetric stretching and matching the frequencies of these infrared photons, all this crap that sends you off the deep end of conspiracy theory, actually, because there's nothing actually scientific about the statements that I'm reading in all of this. So their theory on energy conversion, when infrared photons with matching frequencies hits carbon's CO2 molecules, and saying it's absorbed and then creates a vibration faster and conversion, and then creates this type of conversion of brand new energy from photon into kinetic energy motion of a molecule. All they're talking about, man, is the reaction of molecules under heat, under light, under infrared, under ultraviolet. That's fuck all. That's not creating a brand new fucking phenomenon here. That's like heating water up. Oh, fuck. I just put my fucking teapot on a fucking gas heater. Oh, I heated up the water. So I've made a brand new fucking molecular structure here. They are so full of shit, it makes me sick. You've got this energized CO2 molecule. Oh, what did you do? It's out in the sunlight. Oh, it's energized. Oh, with other molecules in the atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and oxygen. Wow. No fucking shit, Captain Obvious. Well, it can't absorb infrared energy directly. In these collisions, the CO2 molecule transfers its extra energy by making other molecules move faster, increasing the temperature of the air. Wow! Wow, there's a fucking technical explanation for the fucking sunlight. Fucking ouch. And the fucking sun rays are coming through. What a load of bullshit, man. Ow. I'll show you some molecular vibration. I'll go and heat up a fucking cup of tea. Wow, look at all the vibration and heat in that water. Jeez, isn't that amazing? I'll give you a half-an-hour breakdown on what's happening in there on a molecular atomic basis. These people are full of shit. I'll tell you, your exhaust pipe gases, they're not radioactive, they don't become radioactive, and they do not contribute to any fucking warming of the Earth's atmosphere. How do you like that? Have a great day.